We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back with Liberty Nation's legal affairs editor, Scott D. Cosenza. Earlier in the show, we were discussing what crimes Donald Trump has been charged with in the latest indictment, courtesy of Special Prosecutor Jack Smith. Now, Scott, I'd really like to start talking about how Jack Smith arrived at these decisions, what his motivation happens to be, how this is going to play out in court, if it makes it to court as well, is kind of a question I'd like to get to, and generally find the zeitgeist of what this movement against Donald Trump is doing. So thanks for coming back, Scott. Good to have you on.
Cheers, Mark.
Okay, first question. Jack Smith, he seems, at least according to what we saw during the press conference where he unveiled the 4-count indictment, he seemed quite vociferous, I would say, quite adamant, quite strong in his opinion, which is not really the impartial application of justice that we'd kind of hope for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if the charges were just, we can forgive ourselves a bound and determined prosecutor who's outraged by the criminal behavior of the accused within reason. The ABA guidelines do suggest that, public statements made out of court that tend to villainize a defendant are to be avoided. And I think that probably the federal courts have standards there too in that regard. So I don't know if, do they cross the line? Well, if we pretend, Mark, that the whole thing isn't invented to get Donald Trump, then I don't know. Maybe then, we could take out the rule book and say, how far did they go to the line? I don't know. But I just can't get that part out of my brain to do that pretending in order to render an answer there.
So I think the worry here for many, and this has got to be a worry on both sides of the political aisle, wherever you stand on Donald Trump, is that Jack Smith is doing a Bob McDonald again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so for people who don't know, Bob McDonald was the governor of Virginia who was prosecuted by Jack Smith and one of his deputies for a number of corruption charges, and they were novel applications of federal corruption charges.
Let me just jump in there, Scott. So would you say the crimes that Donald Trump has been charged with are also novel applications of charges?
Yes.
Okay, please continue. I thought they were, but I just wanted to verify that.
They certainly are. Now, they're not identical to the way that they charged McDonald, but they're similar. And Bob McDonald was convicted. And 2.5 years, I think, after his conviction, the United States Supreme Court unanimously threw out the convictions that Smith got for McDonald. And McDonald said on, I think it was a TV show, I was watching some clips of him. He said that Jack Smith would rather win than do the right thing, essentially.
The only reason I'm really wired into this Bob McDonald case, Lisa K. Donner, Liberty Nation's editor-in-chief, she when it was first announced that Jack Smith was being appointed to this, she wrote an article on that on the pages of libertynation.com, essentially saying what you're saying here, that he kind of went what Bob McDonald even said about Jack Smith, that it was really get the guy and be damned with decorum and basically practical standards that, as you point out, the American Bar Association might frown upon.
There's a quote online that says that McDonald, that they said that the McDonald children shouldn't talk to their parents because Smith might try to charge them with conspiracy. He charged McDonald's wife with criminal charges as well. Again, in an effort, according to the former governor's characterization, as a win at all costs, not win ethically, not win to the best of, and he did until the Supreme Court got a hold of the case. So.
And unanimously, I think that's really worth pointing out, because the Supreme Court is under a lot of fire nowadays about partisanship and being a MAGA court. Yeah. And that was a unanimous decision.
The dirty little secret there, Mark, is I think 40 or some significant percentage of court cases are dispensed in a unanimous fashion. It's actually to the power of the court that some significant minority are, right? That they're not so polarized.
Yeah, not everything that it drops to the Supreme Court is a Roe v. Wade or something. Right. So how does this go for Donald Trump now? I presume that Jack Smith is looking for, I quote, a speedy trial. And the advantages of that would be it would essentially hamper Donald Trump's ability to campaign, run for office.
I've seen read legal commentator Jonathan Turley make the point that the real benefit to Biden and the Justice Department in this case is that the charges were filed in Washington, D.C., and a D.C. jury will be salivating at the chance to put Trump away compared to a Florida jury where, would be more of a mixed bag and maybe even, chances for some significant pro-Trump attendees. So just that he would maybe have to sit through a criminal trial in a place where he's been so vilified,
it's ground zero for Trump derangement syndrome.
Honestly, if I were him, I would be, knocking on doors in purple states would be my reaction to this, to these charges, because it becomes all the more important. It can't be overstated. We, again, to speak directly to the point, if Donald Trump becomes the next president of the United States, these charges will go away. He will not have to fight them. First of all, he can pardon himself for any federal crimes, which I'm sure he would do on minute one of his next presidency. And the second thing is he would just simply have federal prosecutors withdraw the charges. So, it's a political prosecution by one politician's administration to hobble and perhaps incarcerate another, that person's chief rival for the office. So how that person can best defend themselves is win the office.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what Donald Trump's been aiming for ever since anyway.
And then we'll see Special Prosecutor Ken Cuccinelli's expose of the Biden administration.
I'm sure we will. Now, so it's going to take place in a D.C. court. We don't know when, but Jack Smith is pushing for a speedy trial. The judge in the matter, who has made some fairly vociferous, the randomly selected judge in the matter, I should point out, randomly selected. She has prosecuted a number of January 6th defendants and has had harsh words for them and the surrounding episode.
By the way, I want to say that it is, you made the point, but it is case selection and assignment is something that is so much an everyday thing at a federal courthouse. Court cases are filed and they get assigned. The idea that somebody's got the thumb on the scale for any particular thing is just outside the bounds.
Well, I'm glad you corrected me on that, Scott, because that does bring up a question of why I keep hearing in the, let's call it the more left-leaning media, when, for example, the documents case in Florida, and they were all discussing why this particular judge was on the case.
Yeah,
and they seem to be suggesting that the fix was in.
The other thing too is, for a president who only served for 4 years, Donald Trump, because of his own will, of course, but also the efforts of the Federalist Society and its leader, Leonard Leo, appointed a staggering percentage of the federal judiciary for a 4-year president.
Okay, so one final question for you, Scott. Now, this will go to court. It seems almost impossible that it will get... You think there's a chance that it won't make it to court?
Do you mean trial when you said it'll go to court?
Yes.
Oh, we're a long way off from that, Mark.
How long do you think?
Oh, I mean, meaning we're a long way off from suggesting that this will see trial. I think there will be interlocutory appeals. Donald Trump will use the McDonald verdict that we discussed to try to say these charges are akin to that and they should be stricken down, and he may win some and lose some. There are 4 counts, and those win some and lose some, maybe win some, lose some at the intermediate appellate court, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and then who knows if the Supreme Court wants to weigh in on any of that. I would guess that they would want to avoid it like kryptonite if at all possible, but that all remains to be seen. So your confidence in a forthcoming trial date is something I lack.
Interesting taking it. Scott DeCosenza, thank you ever so much for joining us. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Mark.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are libertynation.com.